the way that Kyle put it to me this morning, he said, listen, if you're going to make a commitment to me, I want you to understand that that's a commitment, right? Because I've made commitments off of your commitments. And if you let your commitment down to me, I'm affecting so many other people because I can't keep that commitment to them.
All right, welcome back to Design, Build, Sell. We're your host, RB Gallup,
Sarah Bennett,
and Alicia Dobby.
Today we're joined with Adam Copenhaver of Copegrand Homes. Adam's a Lowcountry builder, is where he primarily works, and Adam's going to tell us a little bit about himself, and welcome to the show.
RB team, thanks so much for having me. Always fun to join these podcasts. I'm excited to just talk shop today and cover a bunch of topics. We are Copegrand. Myself, my twin brother, and our entire team. We're based out of Charleston. A year and a half, probably going on 2 years ago, we moved the division to the upstate after a client had taken us up there. So we're active both in Charleston and the Greenville, Lake Kiwi market of the upstate.
Sweet.
Awesome.
What is your background? How did you get started in the industry?
I followed a similar path as a lot of folks that are in the industry. We generally grew up in a construction family. We did a lot of projects with our father. We did a lot of projects with friends' parents, and those were all inspirations to Ben and I. So we had hammer and nails and tool bags from an early age. My twin brother, Ben, actually went to a 4-year trade school to learn construction and project management. Myself, I went into engineering. And then we always knew that even throughout college, as we were still building projects, we were building a log cabin in the upstate of Pennsylvania, and we just would always sit around the fire and talk about the future. And the future was, hey, this whole crew that we've got here, hopefully someday we're all in a place building homes together. And remarkably enough, that whole crew is now in Charleston, and 3 out of 4 of them are on Team Grand. So it's been a pretty cool
That's really
journey
cool.
To watch that happen. And it's been pretty special to sit back. I don't oftentimes get to think about that and be very grateful for it, but I am significantly grateful for that team and having those experiences. So it's been great.
Now, are you from Charleston originally, or what brought you to Charleston?
Ben and I are from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, so most synonymous with Amish furniture and Amish buildings and those sorts of things, and farmland, which is where we got our experience. And Ben had moved to Charleston after he graduated the project management school at Penn State. And I remember that he had graduated about 6 months after I did, and he said, hey, where should I go? And I said, go to Charleston, I'll meet you there. And in the meantime, I got introduced to some really smart guys in Richmond, Virginia, and I decided to go work with them and be hazed by them in real estate and construction and development for, I guess, the better part of 10 or 12 years. And until about 7 years, I guess now, 8 years ago, we decided that we were going to go ahead and join Ben in Charleston. And that's when officially Copegrand had started. Ben and I were talking on the phone, and he had said, hey, I think I'm ready to make the transition, start Copegrand. We've got our first house. And I said, great. Well, here's what we'll do. I'll support you remotely. And when you get too busy and you can't handle it on your own, you give me a phone call, and I'll put the house on the market in Richmond, Virginia. And that phone call probably happened about 3 or 4 months into it. And I did just that. My wife and I put the house on the market. It sold in 36 hours. And after that, the moving truck came, and we were in Charleston. And we'll be here for good.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Well, welcome to the South.
Yeah.
So Charleston Charleston's a great market to do real estate, construction, anything. I mean, it's a booming city. I would definitely consider it more of the luxury city in the South Carolina region. There's obviously with that a lot of builders. So what makes Copegrand stand out? Do you have a niche that you're known for?
Or a niche.
A niche or niche? Well, I guess both of them. If our niche is one thing, it is building extremely unique relationships with our clients. And the second part about the niche is that we build some really cool projects for those folks that require a lot more attention to detail. Certainly in the pre-construction side of the business, as well as the construction management side of the business. So we've evolved to both the niche and the niche in those areas in Charleston. And then specifically, there's been a number of locations that we've been known as that builder in that market to go to. And those locations stretch from Owl Palms and Wild Dunes, certainly Folly Beach is where a lot of our projects are, and then they stretch down to Kiowa and Seabrook Islands.
Nice.
Awesome.
I understand you work with your brother. You were talking about that and starting the company together. What roles do you each play, and kind of how does that dynamic work?
So we kind of evolved pretty easily into this dynamic, and most of the time I discuss it as kind of a yin and yang, where we fit together extremely nicely, where the bulk of my role is in pre-construction. So client introductions, understanding where the location of the property is, what the goals are of the client, what the goals are of the project. And then with the pre-construction team that we have, I'll go through, do architecture, engineering, site planning, estimating, and all the pre-construction duties through permit. And then traditionally, that's where Ben and his side of the team and the rest of the project managers will pick that up and then manage the build to completion. Now, the yin and yang part about it is that Ben and I stretch to both of those ends. And so we've got several clients that have been legacy clients for Copegrand. I think now we're up to 8 projects with one client. And the unique thing about that is I will run pre-construction through construction, through closeout of that project on every single one of those. And while Ben has been on each one of those jobs, he hasn't had much management to do with those jobs. And the same is true for some projects and clients that Ben has had from the beginning too, that are quite unique and used to his design and his management style and that sort of thing. So typically I handle pre-construction, and then Ben's strong suite certainly is the construction and management of the project managers in the field.
How do y'all split the operations of the business? You know, do you split CFO, COO duties? Who handles the HR? Who handles the accounting? You know, do y'all have a separation there at all?
We share a lot of it. We do, just this morning, we did our operations and accounting call. So every Wednesday morning, we'll meet as a group with a number of people, including our accountant. And we'll go through all the jobs and make sure that professionally they're all looked at, all dissected on a week-to-week basis. Make sure that the subcontractors that have their invoices in are in. At that same time, we'll discuss any HR things that come up. So we do that as a team, and we've got an operations manager, so to speak. We've got one of the individuals that I mentioned earlier on the show was a guy that I chose to go to Virginia to go work with, and he's been an incredible inspiration to me personally, to us and our team. And he'll join us on our weekly calls and throughout the week on a number of things to help advise. He's got now probably 40 years of experience in construction and real estate. So he's been a pretty valuable asset to us and the team, and certainly one of my best friends as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
So take us through the makeup of your team right now. You know, who are the players and what do they do?
So we've got on the pre-construction side, we've got an estimator, my man Chris, and we've got a design coordinator, Barbara, and myself, and that's pretty much the pre-construction team there. And then on the project management side, we've got 4 project managers. There is one in the upstate that runs our division up there. And then there's Bud Oley, our operations guy, and then Gabrielle runs all of our accounting. And let's see, I don't want to be missing out anybody. I think that might be it. Yep.
It sounds like you have a pretty nice team there. Do you have an architect that you work with usually, or is that something you contract out?
With several architects. We don't have one in-house. We've never had drafting or architecture in-house. And I'm not sure if we will or ever will. RB, I know that's one of y'all's strong suits as well. You get to control that process. For us, certainly starting out in the beginning, you have a number of different clients that have a number of different goals for their project. And one might be, hey, listen, we're trying to get the most amount of square footage for the cost. And then the other ones are, hey, we really want this to be incredibly unique and detailed. And what I've learned is that there are draftsmen and there are architects, and there's every scale in between of those individuals. And some of them are good at this vernacular, and some of them are good at that vernacular. And so what we do in our pre-construction process early on is identify what the goals are of the project. As I mentioned before, what is important to the client, how much of that relationship to the project is the budget, and where the target investment needs to be based on quality level, fit and finish level, size. And then there's all these other constraints or opportunities in Charleston, which are planning for our environment down here, which typically is a heavy salt-laden environment, a high wind zone environment, in addition to we're in an earthquake zone in Charleston. So we plan for all those things when we're planning for our build and who we're going to be selecting for architect or designers.
The markets, I think, drive architect projects as well. Like I have a friend in Atlanta. His company's Longo Custom Builders, and he said he couldn't do it without the architects. He said a design build firm really wouldn't work there. There may be a couple that are established and really good, but those high-end homes in certain markets really do come from the architects. That is, and there's not that many architects around Columbia, so I think it's market driven too, for sure.
I think that is the case. Learning a lot about different markets over time, certainly Charleston, but also the upstate for us, which is the Greenville market, Lake Huey market, those sort of things. It's been profound to find out how those relationships between builders, architects, and within the construction industry are a little bit unique from location to location. So Charleston, I know, is a mecca for architecture because a lot of people do want to live here. There's a lot of creative people here, a lot of architects. So trying to think of the last time we've used a number of out-of-town architects, certainly from the Northeast, but for the most part, there's any number of architects in town. And we do certainly have our favorites, and those favorites are based on working relationships and their relationships with our clients, and also the level of quality and detail that they go into, making it easier for us to build that home that they designed and put so much time.
Very cool. Adam, I'd love, as a designer, to hear how you handle the design portion of your business. If I was a client coming to you, when would I meet your designer, and what would that process look like?
So, Lisa, excellent question. And design has become, over the years, one of my favorite things. Why? Because our B&I are builders that are just stuck in this archaic land of still using nails and 2x4s. There's a bit of evolution and creativity when it comes to the construction side, but I'm going to tell you that most of the gratification in finishing a house is the result of you, Alicia. It is a result of the designers and their influence that they have on the houses. So early on, I've got a unique story about this. And I'm going to be grateful and try not to be boastful with this, but we have not lost a lot of jobs as Copegrand. If a client comes to us and they interview us, and we are the right fit, and we do have an interview process for our clients, I'll be sure about that. But if they're a right fit for us and we're a right fit for them, we pretty much always do the job. There was probably 6 or 7 years ago, there was a project in Charleston. It was a fairly large project. It was quite a unique house. And we had the opportunity to bid on the house. And after all the hard work, RB, how many hours that we put into preparing through pre-construction and estimating to put together a formal bid to make sure it's accurate and detailed. We got the phone call saying, hey, thank you so much, guys. Your work was incredible, but we decided to use the other builder that we were interviewing with. And I had an opportunity to talk to the client about it and just say, hey, would you mind if I just did a follow-up and just see if there was something that we missed out on or didn't perform correctly or didn't offer to you? And it was quite unique that the answers I got. I think the first thing that I asked was, how do we do on budget? And they said, well, you guys were actually at $50,000 less than the other builder. And I said, oh, wow. And I've come to develop a rule that every builder on a certain project, so long as that builder is within a certain echelon, should be about 2 to 3% or 0% within each other builder, right? So long as they're bidding it properly and they're using very similar subs that are going to generate the quality and the detail that the client's looking for. And if they're doing their pre-construction process so that they do vet out those details that the client's looking for, they should all be really close to each other. And so I offer to our clients, always go with the one that you feel like is doing the best work up front for you, because oftentimes it's going to translate into the rest of the project. In addition to that, you've got to pick the builder that you can figure out is going to have the best relationship with you and your designer and your other building partners throughout the process. And that will unleash the opportunity to enjoy it and have fun and allow it to be a creative process. So the design side, going back to that in full circle, the other piece of feedback that I got from this individual was, hey, we really chose the other builder because the builder's wife is the architect, and the architect is going to be making all of our selections with us as the designer. And I said, oh, well, hey, Elise, Ben and I go around and do all the selections and design with our clients as well. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks in my face. I said, you know what, that was actually where the shortcoming was, that we did not have somebody that was a professional designer that really knew how to maximize the design opportunity of quality within the fit and finish of their build and what selections they were choosing. And Ben and I are both that we're really good at it, and we've got some creative opportunities, and we're really good at maximizing the investment associated with that. But there on out, Alicia, we chose to work with designers on every single project. It wasn't till a year and a half ago that we brought a designer on board. And Barbara, for us, is an incredible blessing. Just the most amazing woman and very talented designer. And we will use her on projects, every single project for design, but often too, clients come to us with designers in tow, which is also great. So if a client comes to us and says, hey, I've got a designer, fantastic. If they don't have a designer, we'll plug Barb in as the designer. But even if they do have a third-party designer, Barb is still heavily involved with that project because, as you may know, your expertise is in design and materiality and fit and finish and texture and those sort of things. Our expertise as a builder is in how all these things come together. And then there's a piece of communication and documentation to put all those puzzle pieces together to make sure that they're fitting with the myriad of other things that are specified for the house. And Barb speaks builder language extremely well. And we love to stay incredibly detailed and organized. We use BuilderTrend as a software, and we're incredibly involved with that software so that we can make sure that when we do make a selection with the designer, we also have all the cut sheets. We've gone through how it goes together. We've communicated that with our subs, and it is on our BuilderTrend file for all of our subs, vendors, and trades to actually work from to make sure that it gets delivered the way it needs to be delivered in the field. So that's how we handle design today. We use outside designers, and if they're not available, we'll certainly use our interior designer. But I'm curious, Alicia, how does that seem like it makes sense? Certainly offer some advice if you've got any.
No, I think it makes great sense. I think in the luxury market that we all work in, that people appreciate and expect or want a designer to be involved. Mm-hmm. It's just a different level of home being built. And us over at Gallup, I'm grateful I have the opportunity to be a team member with RB on the team to be the designer. And I just came on full board with them earlier this year. So,
yeah.
Well, congratulations. I'd go further to say that in our echelon, we can't do a project without a designer on board. So it was kismet. It was divine that Barb had come along when she did. Barb, the story behind her is she was from the Northeast and reached out and said, hey, I've been following you guys, and I'd really like you to build me a house. And so we talked a lot about that. And then I said, Barb, what are you going to do when you move here? Are you looking for something to do and that sort of thing? And can I help with that? And she said, actually, I've got a background in design. And so the conversation started, and one thing led to another, and it was a great match for us. Yeah.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Not obviously the builder is obviously a huge part of it, but I just built my own house. We're actually at my house right now, and we did a custom build.
I didn't build it. I hate to say that.
Our neighborhood only unfortunately has a list of builders you can use. But anyways, one of my conditions was that Alicia had to help us design it, and I am so thankful that she did. We are so grateful for Alicia because I always talk about, I can see the vision once it's like all there, but I could never piece everything together the way that she does. And even the builder that we worked with was like, yeah, I couldn't have chosen this stuff. But we get so many compliments from people about our house, and I always respond, thanks. I did basically nothing. This is all Alicia. If not for her, our house would in no way look like this. So yeah, the designers are an intricate and necessary part for a custom build.
A great opportunity to just spend a little bit more time on for the future clients that might be listening to this podcast. I oftentimes talk about trying to build a company and continue to build a company to mitigate and minimize the amount of stress that can come in this year-long, 2-year-long, 3-year-long journey. And for us, it's always been an opportunity about developing skills and developing processes and systems to avoid the Murphys that can come up, and certainly cover the gaps of what a client may be really experienced at or may not be really experienced at. So I oftentimes hear or have heard that a client would come along and say, oh yeah, I know exactly what I want for my house. I've got all these Pinterest things. I can be my own designer. And those things have absolutely turned into catastrophes because It is the single most stressor outside of the budget for a client is understanding or just learning how to make selections and how all these things need to come together and not missing the mark. And I've certainly seen that in our evolution too, as we have made selections internally or with clients, and then the evolution into professional design has just been a world of difference. And to speak to that for a second, and Sarah, you might be able to attest to this, on the resale side of things, a house that has been done by a professional designer and a house that was just maybe put together, what do you think the difference in value, pound for pound, say it's the same size house, same neighborhood, that sort of thing?
Oh, it's definitely going to increase the value of the home, no doubt. Don't know if I could throw a specific number or percentage on it, but even again, in this neighborhood that we live in, a neighborhood called Saluda River Club, and I would say half of the homes are custom, half might have been spec homes, still by good builders, but you can absolutely see the quality that has gone into those who chose to do the custom build and the resale value that those have held compared to the other ones.
I was just going to say to echo the market, like I can drive by houses and there's just something not connected on the architecture and the interior design. Just on the exterior, just looking at the exterior, you can tell it just doesn't quite have it. It might cost the same, it might have all the same components, but they're not taking into account scale and the focal point and color might be off. A lot of times it's the color's off. So you can just tell, at least in my opinion, when a professional's involved.
So all four of us in this service industry of construction and real estate, it's our opportunity to guide our clients to make the most of their investment. I'm going to encourage all those future clients out there that the value of having a builder with design on board or having your own designer that's involved with the builder and has a great relationship is worth its cost, because instead of being a cost, it's actually a bona fide investment. And I think that it pays for itself twofold.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and so it's the design element of it is very important, and then the guide element. We call that, and it's not as sexy as a term, but the selections coordinator. But combining the two, where you're getting both the high impact design and the helpful guide, how are you going to work within the builder's framework? That's a problem. Usually, like you might have a different framework than we would have, for instance, and your vendors are different than ours. Our specs are different than yours.
And in our area, I don't really know of another builder that has a team that you have an architect, you have a designer, you got your project managers, your purchase estimator, all your operations at one stop.
Sounds like a niche.
It is, and credit where credit is due. It was my parents who did that, and my dad's always been, I always thought it was because he's trying to definitely pat my mom on the back, but he's like, people, it's a huge element of our business, the interior design, the plan design, and the construction. I mean, those three right there, like we've got other niches and stuff that makes us who we are, but those are the key factors.
I think the sidebar of that, RB, is the opportunity for the builder actually running the business and providing the service is to also figure out how to monetize those things too. When you think about a builder and its rate compared to another builder and the value that they bring to their client, it's tough to, I think, put those things side to side and develop a cost or valuation for those advantages of going with somebody that has the proper team versus somebody that doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a selling point, and you're getting more value. And it's really not a lot when you I think we're very competitive with what we offer, but we offer the solution. It helps us too. So we might, in other words, subsidize the plan design and the interior design to some degree. That's something that we're supporting. It might cost more to go to an architect than it would to come to us. But we value that so much in the connection of our business that it makes sense.
So you touched on that you're expanded into the upstate, into Greenville and Lake Keowee. What made you make that decision to go up there? And what does that process look like? How is that going, having two different markets that you're working in?
I've said this before, I'll say it again. I guess I've been saying it for years. And RB, you'll probably laugh at this, but all of us builders are just fools with egos, right? We, to some extent or another, we're just a fool with an ego. It's an extremely tough business, but the ego side of it is that we love building beautiful things. Personally, we love building beautiful relationships, and a relationship is what took us up to the upstate. We had a client up there, and we've been visiting up there, that sort of thing. And they said, hey, I really want to build this house, and I really love you guys. I remember at least 3 times getting the invitation to build that house, and at least 3 times declining it, saying, hey, it's a bridge too far. And then either the 3rd or 4th request, we were actually in the upstate, and we were on Lake Kiwi, and our client asked us to go for a ride, me personally, to go for a ride in the golf cart. And they took me to this piece of property that just looks over Lake Kiwi, and it's absolutely stunning, beautiful. And she said, Adam, what's it going to take? And I said, well, let's just go through the what it would take. I said, I would think about it. And then if these things come together, maybe it'll work. But I said, we would need somebody here local, and we would need somebody that is quite possibly one of the best team members that we could ask for in our Charleston team. And I want somebody here locally that's from here, that knows the sub-base, that knows the trades, that knows the codes, that knows construction. And after that, I would need to spend a significant amount of time here interviewing the entire sub-base and trade base. And I need to find the exact same guys that we've been able to find and develop relationships with in Charleston. And I'd like to start small, and I'd like to go, after that, build the upstate just like we built Charleston, which is one home at a time, one client at a time, one 5-star review at a time, those sort of things. And interestingly enough, they said, well, would you try it? And I said, how about this? I'll start making some phone calls, and I'll start in that direction. In the meantime, I want you to keep your other builders that you're talking to, and I'll elect to enter the bid process, since you're going to do a bid process. And if I get a headwind anywhere throughout this process, I might turn around or I might course correct until I find a tailwind. But if I find a tailwind and I make it the whole way to the end and have the opportunity to submit a bid that I feel comfortable with, the subs and suppliers that are included with that bid, then I'll submit one. And it took me about 4 months, I think, to put it all together. And remarkably, it came together a lot better than I anticipated. There wasn't very many headwinds. And I asked one other thing. I said, I need the architect to review the bid. I said, I know where you want to go. I know that you would just want to choose us. But I said, let somebody who's done this before review those bids and make sure that they match up correctly, and then let them make that decision along with you. And so that was another stipulation, and they did that. And we went through the interview process with the architect and the client, and we talked a lot about our scope of work and our bid and who our subs and trades were. And got a phone call from the architect and said, hey, fantastic, you guys won the bid. And I said, all right, well, tell me one important thing. I said, would you tell me where we ended up on price? And the answer that I got was, Adam, you were not low and you were not high. And I said, perfect, because those other 2 things are the 2 things that I was worried about, was being too low on that bid, as if I missed something, or being too high, that it wasn't going to be valuable for the client to choose us. So right in the middle is exactly where I wanted to be. And so we finished that project since then, and another one. We're finishing our 3rd project here before the end of the year. And it's just, it's been a remarkable experience. I'll spend traditionally 3 weeks out of every month up there. I'll go up there for a day at a time, or 3 days at a time, or more, depending on what's going on with the projects. I've been up there for a whole entire week, a number of times. And so I'll go through the projects, and when I'm there, I'm meeting with our project manager, our division manager, John Riley, and I'm going through the plans, quality control, relationships with the subcontractors, trades, vendors, and meeting with our clients up there to make sure that the budget is on point and we're keeping track of costs and expenditures.
Yeah.
So you started with that one home there. Has it expanded? Or are you continuing that growth?
I'm going to continue it one at a time. We're working on quoting 2 projects right now. We've got 2 projects that are about a year and a half out that are in pre-construction and design with some local architects up there. So we're looking to do those in a couple of years when they start to break ground. And so, yeah, if anybody's listening to this and says, hey, I might want to have you guys look at my project in the upstate, certainly give us a call. It will be a slow growth up there for us, meaning that we will build our team just like we built it here in Charleston, which is based on service, honesty, integrity, and doing a really good job at what we do. A lot of thanks to that does go to our back-end system. So we not only have Copegrand Charleston that supports the upstate and everything that we do, from design to accounting to all of our project management through Buildertrend, all of that's actually run through Charleston. And then on the boots on the ground project management is actually done locally. So it's worked out pretty good. And kudos to Buildertrend for allowing us to do that. I think if we were still antiquated in the old-fashioned standpoint, and I can say that because I made this evolution with Buildertrend. Looking back now, the old systems of project management and how to run a building company and keep track of communications and bills and invoices and that sort of thing through spreadsheets and just QuickBooks is a daunting task. Buildertrend's made that a lot easier for us to make that leap.
Yeah, and client communication's really nice. And I was actually talking to my wife the other day, and we went to Buildertrend in 2015, and I don't really remember what I did before that. And then my dad always would say he had a system, but looking back at it, I don't really know what the system was. I think it was probably like, we're done with framing, call the rough ends. And I'm not discrediting what he did. He made it work. It probably was written in an agenda somewhere, but it's a really helpful tool for sure. Yeah. It's your project manager up there. That's great that I could see how Buildertrend really connects them and whatnot. Is that guy full time for y'all now?
Full time, yep, probably plus some overtime. He's a busy guy, but I'll tell you, the secret to our success is we've just been able to. It's been divine, but we've been able to attract and maintain folks on our team that are just the right people. And when John came along, it was a divine thing. I'll get emotional thinking about John. He's my brother from a different mother. He speaks the same language as I do. He cares just as much about our business and our clients as I do. And that's extremely tough. Even in these days, RB, we could talk online or offline about that, and I'd love to as well, because it continues to be a challenge in construction to be able to find the right people, maintain those right people, make sure that your relationship with them and your relationship with their family is just as robust and important to you and everybody else on the team as it is to your clients. Because from a client standpoint, I would encourage you to meet the folks on your builder's team.
And then, also the struggle as a business owner, Dave Ramsey was talking about trying to approach team members and employees with very delegating and letting them have a rope, giving them enough space to make decisions and whatnot, but holding on to that rope. Even if it's the best person you ever met, you let them go just right out the gate. Here's the keys to the car. Have fun. I've thought of that as micromanaging before, but you've got to give them the support and the backup. And instead of calling it micromanaging, he called it training. And I was like, that's, finding out how to bridge that gap, because you can't just hire people and drop them in and say, all right, have fun. I don't know if you've kind of had to walk the line on that at all.
No doubt. It's there is no coach book or playbook on how to coach your members of your team that I've been able to find that's reliable. Each of us run our own individual, very specific businesses with its own specific culture. And so the best opportunity that we have as builders is to find folks that are talented, good at what they are doing, and able to learn. And no matter where they are in their growth, in their career and vocation, if you can get those three things out of an individual and you can also reciprocate to them, I think that that's going to be an excellent match. It's been, this is not just specific to our industry. Just was in a conversation with, I was on site all morning, guys. We're demoing a house on Folly Beach today, so I was actually there doing some demo. Had the chainsaw out along with the excavator, so I'm an absolute mess. But talking to our demo crew about an individual that they had come on their team, and they stuck around for 3 days. And I said, and I know the individual. I said, well, what happened? And those stories are far too often now where folks will say they want to enter a career and a job path, but then change their mind pretty quickly, or go find something else for 25 more cents or 20 more grand or 5 more grand a year, only to be there for a short amount of time. And personally, I'll I'll question the ethics of those people, but also want to support them in having that learning experience to say, hey, that's not the right path. The way that Kyle put it to me this morning, he said, listen, if you're going to make a commitment to me, I want you to understand that that's a commitment, right? Because I've made commitments off of your commitments. And if you let your commitment down to me, I'm affecting so many other people because I can't keep that commitment to them. And I think that that's really important that everybody on the team realizes that and understands their role in that and what their compensation and what their home is with the business and the responsibility associated with that. So, if we're trying to make strides maybe next year, it continues to be around the hub of our wheel, which is Builder Trend, and training around that and training on different things as we build different homes and get more modern structures and steel structures. We've been having to do a little bit more training on those sort of things recently, just to make sure that not only one person on that team is really good or the expert on that, but also introducing it to the rest of the team so that we can share those skill sets amongst each other.
I assume, and this may be wrong, but I would assume you build some vacation homes down on the Lowcountry and perhaps in the upstate. Do you see a difference in the clientele building their primary residence versus building a second home, a vacation, maybe beachfront home?
Yeah, specifically, I think in Charleston, it's been more driven towards both second home, some primaries for sure, but second home, and then in addition to that, investments. Investments that either are vacation rentals, short-term rentals, long-term rentals. Charleston has been a hot spot for folks that want to move here and invest here. It seems like a very safe place over the course of the last century to go and do that in real estate. So I think that that's driven the market. It certainly has driven the decisions of our clients. And so that has been a multiple, I couldn't even count at this point. Folks have come to us and say, hey, we want a second home. And we may end up renting it in the meantime, a number of weeks a year, or for the most part of the year. We'll take the weeks that aren't available, and then someday we'll move here. And so we've gotten the opportunity to develop that skill set over the years on how to execute those second home or vacation rental type of investments into decisions of how are we designing that house, what materials are we using that house to take advantage of low maintenance. In addition to that, we understand that renters can wreak havoc on the interior and exterior of a house. So the selections that we may make for a primary house are maybe not the same selections and investment-driven decisions that we would encourage or offer for a vacation rental or rental. And so those things, we've gotten into the numbers. We've done all the spreadsheets for our clients as well, the investment, the return, the construction costs, those sort of things. We've got some really good friends that manage vacation rentals and rental properties. And so we'll partner with them just to offer to our clients, hey, here's somebody that has a lot of knowledge. They're very much local. They look after all the other properties for our clients. And so when somebody comes to us, I think they get a bit more of a robust experience if they're thinking about that investment in Charleston and wanting to do something like that where they might not be full-time and they might want to generate some income. And actually, just funny, I was talking to an individual again this morning about that of a number of properties. These investments for folks have done extremely well. And it also does depend on the basis at which they buy the property for. It depends on the investment level in which they target the build for, and then the location for the rental. Is it in a good area to rent, or is it not in a good area to rent? So it's been great as a builder to also be involved with those real estate investment decisions and be a guide and a resource, not only on our side, but also introduce them to others that might be even more so an expert on those. Sarah, I've got to ask, how's real estate going?
Actually, real estate is the market's still really strong here. I have several agent friends down in Charleston, and I was talking to one just last week because she said that things are starting to slow down, but they're starting to get more inventory. And so I think historically, Columbia is like 2 to 3 months behind Charleston and Greenville in terms of what the market trends do. So I think that we're going to start seeing more, which is good. I mean, we need more inventory, but I think that selling season is obviously starting to shift. It's my understanding it's shifting more right now in Charleston, and it sounds like we're probably right behind you guys.
I don't know that I do understand that interest rates are having an effect on certainly portions of the market, and that's going to affect what I understand myself as the cascade of transactions. And so there will be certain people that still have money to make the investments that they want to make and move where they want to move, but it has slowed the ability for others to do it. And I think the other big component to that is I always relate market strength to consumer confidence. And at the moment, you watch any news and you're like, and you watch the stock market, and you're like, hey, where's my confidence go? And so as you think about that, I think people have just, maybe paused decisions for a little while, or maybe they've decided to do something else for a year or two. But our side of the business still seems to be pretty darn strong. Like we're looking, what we've got on the books for next year is too much for us to handle. So I think I'm going to, it's either I find an opportunity to scale up with another project manager or two, or we just go ahead and scale right back down, which is probably fine for me too. 2021 and 2022 has been crazy.
We had such a good conversation with Adam that we decided to break this one up into a 2-part series. Join us for another 45 minutes or so. Next week, we'll be continuing our discussions with Adam Copenhaver of Copegrand Homes. If you're enjoying Design, Build, Sell, please drop us a rating and review on Apple iTunes. It really helps us grow this podcast, and it would mean the world to us. Please follow along at designbuildsellpod.com. There you can find all of our links to social media, including our Instagram handle at Design Build Sell Podcast. If there's a topic you want us to cover on our show or a guest you want us to have on, please direct message us at Design Build Sell Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love you to help us shape this podcast. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next week.